warning, and then we'll begin. Welcome all. So the warning is, the legal voters of the town of Jamaica and the county of Windham and the state of Vermont are hereby notified and warned to meet at 10 a.m. at the town hall in said town of Jamaica on the first Tuesday of March 3rd, 2020, to transact the following business and act upon the following articles. The first article is to elect a moderator for the term of 1 year. Do I have nominations? Yes, Dana?
I nominate Greg Jolly.
Are there?
Second.
Very good. Any other nominations? Don't make it easy on me. Come on.
You like it, Greg?
Will you close? All right. Yes. Nominations have been closed. All in favor of Greg Jolly being your moderator, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Any abstentions? I thank you for another year. Who seconded that? Oh, give it to CJ. One thing I would like to ask for people, and it's been requested by BCTV, is that when you make a motion, please stand, state your name. It'll make it easier for us to keep records and also for people to see that we're doing things properly, legally, whatever you want to call it. So if we can try and do that. We tried it last year, we got halfway through and forgot. It'll be okay. So what I'd like to do first is I'd like to do announcements, and then we will move on to Article 2. So the announcements we have, as you can see over on this side, we have the primary going on. This is the presidential primary. If anybody hasn't voted yet, begin at Heather's station. You can vote, and then Pat will sign you out. Polls will be open until 7 p.m., at which point all the justices of the peace and select board will come in and tally. But the polls are open now and will be open until 7 p.m. So tell one and all. Number 2, our representative, Kelly Paella, is unable to be with us or any of the town meetings really because she is a town clerk in Londonderry, I believe, and she is responsible for the primary. However, she has provided to us a two-sided sheet with a summary of the various bills that are now presently going through the legislature, where they're at, where they might be going. She would also like people to know, in the interest of making myself available to all of you during the town meeting week, I will be having a district-wide informational meeting Thursday, March 5th, 6 to 7 p.m. at the Mountain School in Wynn Hall. So put that on your calendar. If you need the date, it's on the top of her sheet right there, so you can take it home with you if you need. We also up here have a copy of the West River Modified Union Educational District Annual Report. Always a good read. We have some informational pamphlets here from the Jamaica Historical Society. And also over here we have a Windham Regional Broadband Project Survey. If you come up here, you get a little slip like this. It'll inform you where to go online to take the survey, which will help them with understanding what is needed in the area for broadband. Okay, the other thing that we have here among my notes is that we have BCTV here again this year recording. I know that many of you watch the select board meetings and the school board meetings for the district on BCTV, and next week you'll be able to watch yourselves once again. So in this meeting is being recorded by Brattleboro Community Television. You can watch it later this week on Comcast Channel 1085, Southern Vermont Cable Channel 10, or online at vermonttv.org. And again, they ask that when somebody's speaking or making a motion that you stand, state your name, just so we can see who's making it and hear it more clearly. And also it helps Sarah with keeping records.
Greg, I will put this on the website, the Jamaica Vermont website, next week probably when it comes up.
So we have that also. I also make sure that we get a hard copy on the a disc that we can spin for posterity, and it goes to the Historical Society. Multiple ways you can find this. The other thing that was suggested, here. Also, do not forget the town meeting lunch, which is today over at church at 12. And I think if we finish like at 11:45, they probably let us in anyway. So please go over. It's for a good cause, and it is $8 for adults and $4 for children. All right, that's done. Now, there was a suggestion, because we're not always certain if everybody in the town knows who your select board and justices of the peace are. So it's been suggested that they introduce themselves. So shall we begin over there? Your name and your position.
Karen Amadon, Justice of the Peace.
Clara Robinson, Justice of the Peace.
Andy Coyne, Vice Chair on the Select Board.
Judith Flower, Select Board.
Tom Tolbert, Select Board.
Greg Melman, Select Board.
Paul Fraser, Chair of the Select Board.
Sarah Wiswell, Town Clerk. Terry Garland, Treasurer.
Rob Willis, Justice of the Peace.
And I'm Greg Jolly. I'm your moderator, but I'm also the Justice of the Peace also. So with that done, with the announcements done, if I've missed one, remember at the end we have a section article called Other Business. That'll be a great time to bring it up at that point to the body. Now, one thing I'd like for people to remember is that this is a deliberative legislative body. Today, you are a mini Montpelier for the town of Jamaica. Your vote counts. The select board cannot move forward without your vote. So keep that in mind. This is a serious thing that I, as moderator, want to perpetuate well into the future, and I thank you all for being here. We're almost through the technicalities here. One of the things that you need to do is that if you're a voting resident of the town, you need to sign in, be able to vote on the floor or for any ballots that come up. When you sign in, you should have gotten a packet of rainbow-colored slips. If it comes to the point of needing this to do a ballot, say during the nominations for select board or other positions in the town, I will call out a color. That color will be the only one that will be officially counted if it goes in the box. If your neighbor doesn't have one of these and asks you to rip it in half and share, that is a spoiled ballot, both of them. I'm saying this because we had some issues around the water vote that I don't want repeated. So please, the numbers that we have back there have to match the numbers of the votes. If there are more votes in here than there are signed in, we have to vote again. So just consider that. These are all little technicalities I want to clean up. We run by Robert's rules as amended by the state of Vermont. What is that place? Supreme Court. That's it. And there are some interesting legal points that they've decided, which we won't go into unless we stumble into them, and then I can give you chapter and verse if necessary. Now, the process here is, and I'm learning every time I go up in February for my refresher, all the things that I did wrong last year. Because I did them wrong, I understand what I'm looking for. And then it's like, oh, that's how you do that. So this is basically how it should work. I'll state the article. It'll be moved by one of you. It'll be seconded by one of you. I will then restate the article. That means it's on the floor. Then we can have discussion and question and all that. Now, we get to a point, somebody can call the question. One thing you need to understand is, if there's no more questions and it's quiet and somebody says, call the question, I will recognize that as a called question. If I've got 3 hands up and somebody calls the question, I'm going to go through those 3 people first because they were recognized first before the call of the question. There's little details, as I said, that I'm learning. Once the question is called, then we have a 2/3 vote to close. Then we go on to actually vote for the article, and you make your decision. Let's see what else we want to say in here. Also remember, in some ways this is a holdover from British parliamentary procedure. Believe it or not, when you watch the fiasco that is Parliament in Britain, they are addressing the Speaker. They are not addressing each other directly. Of course they are, they're facing each other. But technically they're talking to the Speaker. And in this body, when you ask a question, you're asking it, you're speaking it to me. There shouldn't be any discussion. I'll direct. A lot of the times I can just step out of the way and you guys self-regulate wonderfully. But I want you to know if stuff starts spiraling out, I will step in. There is a way to challenge the moderator's rulings. If you feel so moved, let me know and we can go through the process. All right. Having done that, that means we can get on to Article 2. And Article 2 is to act on the town report. Do I have a motion? Patty? And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Micah or Dana, there we go. Now, I restated acting. Article 2 is to act on the town report. Discussion. Is there any presentation from the select board to speak? Patty, as the person who made the first motion, you have the right to speak first if you wish.
Oh.
And you don't have to. Is there any discussion? Yes, Bonnie?
Bonnie, yes. I just wanted to know, I'm the treasurer of the fire department, and there was a typo in the fire department's report on page 56. For the gas and diesel, it says $11,825.07, and it should only be $1,185. We did not spend $11,000 in gas.
The amount, again, Bonnie, for the correction?
The correct amount would be $1,185.82.
Any other discussion? You can call the question. If you don't want any more discussion and you want to vote to accept or reject, you can call the question.
I call the question.
Thank you. Very good. I need 2/3 vote. I'll have it by hand to close discussion. Please raise your hand if you agree to close discussion. Thank you. Those who don't wish to close discussion, please raise your hand. Any abstentions? So passed. Now, we're going to vote on the article. And the article is to act on the town report. I assume that by acting on the town report, you're in the affirmative. You are accepting this. So all in favor of accepting the town report, please raise your hand. Thank you. All opposed? Abstentions? Article 2 is passed. Now then, we move on to Article 3, which will be the election of the following officers as required by law. We'll go through these one by one. Some will be just one nomination, and we can cast one ballot to the clerk. There is probably going to be a point at which we're going to need our little packets. So everybody ready with their packets and a writing utensil. And we are going to start with red. Start at the beginning of the rainbow. Maybe we'll get to the end of the rainbow. So the first select person for a term of 3 years. This is by ballot. And presently, Judy it's the end of her 3-year term. Do I hear nominations for select board for 3 years? Yes, CJ?
I nominate Dana West.
Very good. Dana West has been nominated. Are there other people who wish? I saw you first.
I nominate Greg Moman.
Greg Moman's been nominated. Are there other nominations for the term of 3 years select board? Hearing none, I close nominations, and that's your choice. Dana West or Mr. Melman, sorry, Greg Melman, for the 3-year term. What I'd like to do, everybody, come down the center, vote, and as best you can, go around the outside to your seats. Red. Ballots are open. Red is the color. Red. No, do not rip in half. And you can use the first name. I think Dana West received 25 votes. Greg Melmans received 62, and Tom Colbert received 1. So, a crushing victory right there for Tom. So, Greg Melmans is your select board person for the year. All right, ballot box is in place again. We move on to the second item. Yes, yes. So Judy Flowers is now officially retired from the board, and Paul, and she would like just to speak momentarily to the body.
I just want to remind everybody what incredible, valuable asset she's been to the town. Very early in her career here, she got involved with the transfer station. Those of you who have had a chance to use the swap shop have trod on the boards that she left in her wake. Yes. She has also spent a lot of time and energy making the water system that we now ran upstream, and that thing got completely cut out of control, and she managed to bring that under control. So we have water here. She's also recently stumbled on, with the help of Stuart, the sill, but underneath there's we now have hot water in the bathroom. That's what I'm trying to get to. And I appreciate that more than you know. She also honchoed the reparations that were needed for the sills and some other ceiling. Anyhow, so what I want everybody to do is I want you all to kind of look up high into and thank, not that high, don't go too high, just up to the ceiling, because she's also responsible for getting the ceiling painted. So she's been very, very busy, major asset to us. We wish you the best. Good luck finding another select board that's as much fun as we were. And again, thank you very much for your work.
Very honored that you had me as your select person for almost 7 years. I can't get over that. It's been that long. And that the cooperation that Paul talked about at the transfer station, there were major changes that we all had to make, and you guys just cooperated so well. And the other thing is, I'm the third woman on this board. Lexa, Clara, and then me. And we bring, and I'm going to get into my psychology hat for a minute. We bring to anything that we belong to a relational mindset. Men have a different mindset. They're very much involved in tasks, not that there's anything wrong with that, but you actually need both issues going, both types of thinking on the board. And so it's important that women be on this board along with men, and I encourage you to do that. Thank you so much for your cooperation. As I said, the transfer station being one of the major things, we made a major transition in what we were doing, and we all did it together. And thank you for having me for these years.
Very good. Now we'll move on to the second position, which is for select person for the term of 1 year. This is Greg's 1-year term, which he is now traded in for a 3-year term. So do I hear nominations for select person for 1 year? Yes, CJ?
Nominate Dana West.
Dana West has been nominated. Another nomination?
Jackie Brown nominates Tom Tolbert.
Tom Tolbert has been nominated. Are there other nominations?
Here.
Yes, Andy?
I'm going to nominate Stuart Barker.
Stuart Barker has been nominated. Stuart has declined from the floor. That's why you come to town meeting. Beautiful example right there. So we have 2 individuals. Are there more nominations?
Jessica Pollock.
Jessica Pollock has been nominated by Mr. Kenishiro. She passes She
I'm
declines.
gonna decline.
She declines.
Thank you.
Are there other nominations? All right. Prepare your orange ballot. And the two individuals are Tom and Dana. Come down the center, around the outside, ballot is open. The results from your ballot. 92 voters are now checked in, 91 voted. That's pretty good. Dana West received 30 votes. Tom Tolbert received 61. Necessary to get the position is 46. Tom Tolbert has won the position. He's your new select person for the next year. Roaring on to number 3. This is another select person for the term of 1 year. And that was Tom's position, but now he's been voted, I can't do twice, so he's good. So I'm opening it up for nominations for 1 year. Yes, sir?
Dr. McClellan, I nominate Jessica Pollock.
Jessica Pollock has been nominated. Are there other nominations? CJ?
Dana West.
Dana West has been nominated. Are there other nominations from the floor? Hearing none, I would ask you all to use your yellow for this vote. And you're casting your votes for Jessica Pollock or Dana West. Poll is open. The results of your ballot are, out of 92 possible ballots cast, there were 89 cast. 46 therefore would be needed to win. Dana West received 35. Jessica Pollock received 54. Jessica Pollock is your for 1 year. Okay. For anybody who is elected today from the floor, Sarah up here has what they call the Vermont Oath of Allegiance, which is if you're elected, you have to sign this document. I'll have to sign it because I got it. So if you want to sign it here today, you can do it after the meeting when we're done, or you can go to the town offices and do it there. But just remember that, it helps with the paperwork. Okay, so number 4 is to elect a lister for the term of 3 years by ballot, and Lou Brusso's term is now coming to an end. Do I hear nominations for lister for 3 years? Yes, I see a hand back there. Yes.
Nominate Lou Russo?
Lou Brusso has been nominated. Are there other nominations? Hearing none, I'll close nominations. I can't see anybody else. I'm sorry, what? Did I miss something?
Little baby.
Yes. So, nominations are closed. And I'm just going to ask the body, all in favor of Lou Brusso being your lister for 3 years, please raise your hand. Thank you. Anybody opposed? Abstaining? Thank you. Lou Brusso has the position of lister for 3 years. That was a tough battle right there. Okay, next one is for first constable for a term of 1 year. And presently, as you see in the ballot box, your first constable is Rob Willis. Do I have nominations for constable, first constable for 1 year?
I nominate Rob Willis.
Rob Willis has been nominated. Are there other nominations for, Rob, you're willing to go? Yep, he's in. Are there other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, I will close the nominations. All in favor of Rob Willis being your first constable for a year, please say aye, or raise your hands, good. Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Congratulations, Rob. The next one is for second constable for a term of 1 year. The present term is coming to an end here has been held by Ben Williams. Do I hear a nomination for a second constable for 1 year? CJ?
Nominate Ben Williams.
Ben Williams has been nominated. Are there other nominations for second constable? Hearing none, close nominations. All in favor of Ben Williams being the second constable for a year, please raise your hand. That looks decisive. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Congratulations, Ben. Now, the next one is for town grand juror for the term of 1 year. Presently, that is held by Steve Clark. As far as I remember, it's always been held by Steve. So, are there nominations for the town grand juror for 1 year? Anybody? Yes.
Nominate Steve Clark.
Steve Clark keeps the streak up. Are there other nominations? Hearing none, close nominations. And all in favor of Steve Clark being your town grand juror for 1 year, please raise your hand. Another decisive victory. Anybody opposed? Abstaining. Very good. Excellent. We move along. Town agent for the term of 1 year. And this is Peter Andrews presently holds that position. Do I hear nominations for the position of town agent for 1 year?
I nominate Peter Andrews.
Peter Andrews has been nominated. And as you can see, Peter's not here, so he can't decline. Peter. Are there other nominations for this position of town agent? Hearing none, I close nominations. All in favor of Peter Andrews being your town agent for 1 year, please raise your hand. Another decisive victory. Those opposed? Abstaining? Thank you. We move on to trustee of public funds for the term of 1 year. This is another position held by Stephen Clark in perpetuity. Nominations for the position of trustee of public funds.
Nominate Steve Clark.
Steve Clark has been nominated. Yes. Are there other nominations? Hearing none. Close nominations. All in favor of Steve Clark being your trustee of public funds for 1 year, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstaining? Thank you. Steve Clark is the man. Speaking of which, agent of deed plan for the term of 1 year. Guess who? Stephen Clark. End of the hour. I'll open up nominations for the position of agent of deed of lands for 1 year. Nominations, please. Yes, sir.
Steve Clark.
Steve Clark. Very good. Any other nominations? Hearing none, I close nominations. All in favor of Steve Clark being your agent of deed of lands, please say yes. Thank you. Any opposed? No abstentions. It's a nice clean victory. Okay. Next one up is library trustee for the term of 5 years. Sounds like a sentence more than a term. Presently, it's Jennifer Norder Duke, who is coming to the end of her term. Do I hear nominations? It's Clara. I'm sorry, Clara. I had that wrong. See, that's why you all are here. So, I hear nominations for the term of library trustee for 5 years. I saw Janet's hand up.
Nominate Clara.
Clara Robbins has been nominated.
Could I say? I will take the nomination unless there's someone else here that would like to be on a board and serve in the town. I mean, I've been doing, 5 years is right. I mean, it's 5, 10, 15, 20, it depends on what the sentence is, right? But that being said, if there's anybody here that would like to be on this board, I would step away.
So, that opens it up. Are there any nominations for this position other than Clara? Hearing none. And despite that stirring speech, I close nominations. All in favor of Clara Robinson being your library trustee for 5 years, please raise your hand. Yes, another decisive victory. Any opposed? Maybe Clara. Abstaining? Very good. Clara, congratulations. All right, now we're moving on to the school director for the West River Modified Union Education District for 1 year of a 3-year term. And who presently holds that position? Or who's going out of this position? It's Drew Hazelton? It's the
Christina Robinson.
Christina Robinson, but she was replaced by Jennifer Norder Duke.
Okay.
So it's for Jennifer's position, I assume, or she, okay. So nominations for school director of the West River Modified Union Education District for 1 year. Any nominations?
Nominate Jen.
Jen Dorter-Duke has been nominated by Mr. Hazelton. Sure she'll appreciate that. Yes, Patty.
Nominate Dana West.
Dana West has been nominated. Very good. You have two nominated people. Any other nominations for this position? Yes.
Keegan Eager.
Keegan Eager has been nominated. She unfortunately was not able to be here today because she's a teacher. But she's very interested in her position. That's why she's been nominated. Are there other nominations for this position?
Fine.
Here and now. We're going to close nominations. And now you have a choice between Dana West, Keegan Eager.
Eager again.
Yep.
How do you spell it?
Keegan. Keegan.
K-E-I-G-H.
You're asking a dyslexic. I'm sorry. And there was one, I'm sorry, I forgot the other person. Jen Dorter-Duke. Those are your three people. Jen Dorter-Duke, Dana West,
E-A-K-E-R is her last name.
Keegan Eager. E-A-K-E-R. We're going green. We're going green. Polls are open. They're open. Everybody. So, we've had 95 people check in. On this vote, only 77 voted, which means the individual to get the position would need 38 votes. Keegan Eager received 30. Dana West received 27. Jen Dorter-Duke received 20, which means nobody achieved the majority, which means you need to vote again.
Does anybody get taken off?
Two ways one of these people can come off. One, they request it, and they'll be taken off. Or we have to go through 2 more ballots, and then I can officially take them off,
Okay.
according to Robert's rules.
We only have one more ballot.
You've got more, there's still pink and white to go. We're saving the best for last. You got purple. Next is going to be purple. So we still have the same 3 individuals. Unless somebody removes themselves. Hearing that not, prepare your purple ballots for either Keegan Eager, Dana West, or Jennifer Dorter-Duke. The ballot box is coming down. Voting is open.
This is always so.
Actually, the results of your ballot. We have 95 possible votes signed in. In this vote, there were 62 cast.
Oh my gosh.
Which means that 31 were required to get the majority of the position. Dana West received 22, Keegan Eager received 39, and Jennifer Dorter-Duke received 11, which means that with her 39, Keegan Eager is your representative on the Okay, here we go. This is also a school director for the West River Modified Union Education District for a 3-year term. You just voted for the 1-year term. This is the 3-year term. Do I have nominations? This position was held by, was it you, Drew? Did you have? Yeah, okay, so Drew Hazelton, his term is ending now, so this is the vote for the 3-year position for school director. Nominations, Patty?
I nominate Dana West.
Dana West has been nominated. Are there other nominations? Drew Hazelton has been nominated.
I decline.
Drew has declined. Are there other nominations? Oh, sorry. Jen Dorter-Duke has been nominated. Other nominations for the position of school director for 3 years. Hearing none, I close nominations. So your choice is between Dana West and Jennifer Dordedu. Remember, if you can, come up to the outside, stop at Lexa, pick up your pink slip, and then go through and vote. That's right. The results of your pink slip voting. 69 votes were cast, which means 35 were needed to achieve the position. Dana West received 36. Jen Dordedu received 33. Dana West, congratulations, sir. Okay. That's not bad. It's only taken us 95 minutes to get to this point. So let's move on to the next article because we are done with the elections. Thank you to all who are willing to serve. Thank you to those who have served. And remember, anybody who was elected, please see Sarah to sign your oath. Now, we move on to article number 4, which is to see what sum of money the voters will vote to pay the town's running expenses and how it will be collected. Do I hear a motion? Bonnie West is, may I have a second? Nelson Coleman is seconded. Now, since Bonnie was the first to motion, she has the first right to the floor. So Bonnie.
I would like to make the motion that we postpone indefinitely acting on this article.
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor. And when it's postponed indefinitely, two things can happen. Number one, I need a second to that motion. There's a second from CJ. All right, two things are going to happen now. To postpone indefinitely means if you postpone this article, it will be up to the select board to set up another town meeting to address the budget. It will be at their discretion, and I'm sure they're under all sorts of state and local laws. They'll have to do it within a set amount of time. The second thing that this allows is that we can now talk about the merits of Bonnie's concerns, and the body can discuss it. So Bonnie, your concerns.
Okay, I have 3. On page 20, it shows that we have a surplus in revenue. You cannot spend revenues, unless the rules have changed, you cannot spend surplus revenues without a vote of the electorate. And there is no article to authorize the expenditure of these revenues. On page 24, it shows that we have a deficit. And I did not see anywhere in the proposed budget any monies allocated to cover this deficit, and there's no article to cover this deficit. My other concern is that on page 17, it shows that back in 2014, $415,000 was borrowed from our highway capital fund for running expenses. And that was 6 years ago, and it is still outstanding. And we have infrastructure that needs that money to be used for. 2 bridges, some culverts, drainage, now that the state requires, and even some probably retreatment, which is blacktop. And I think that the select board need to take some time, go back, and maybe make a plan to refund the capital project fund. I assume that it happened when we was having Irene and flood expenses. But it's 9 years since flood Irene, and unless, FEMA comes through, that money is still outstanding. I think they need to have an action plan of paying it back, because we certainly can't afford to pay $400,000 back in 1 year. And it needs to be addressed. And if FEMA money should come in, then it's surplus and we can act on it then.
Before I ask for any questions or observations, before I'd like to allow the select board to address the concerns that Bonnie's raised. Who would like to?
Okay, so I don't know if I'm gonna get this exactly, the page numbers, or I wasn't writing.
Well, on 17,
Okay,
with the 450,000, that's in money from the
okay, so we'll start with FEMA then. Okay.
general fund in 2014. And on page 20 is where it shows the surplus of $97,566. And on page 24, it shows the deficit.
So we did start the year in a deficit situation. And yeah, there was a $90,000 surplus, but part of that was money that came in for the mill roof, which we can't spend on anything except the mill roof. So it actually brings the surplus down to $29,427.95.
Terry, can you repeat what was the 90, part of the 97,000 was what? You couldn't use it for what?
It's insurance money for the mill roof.
Oh,
So it's a designated fund, it can't be used for anything other than.
And so I guess you could vote to spend that on something else. Maybe you have to vote on that. I don't think you can
I don't
spend that on anything else.
I mean, it was issued, the insurance payout was specifically for the damage sustained in the lake.
but there's still some surplus, right?
There is, yep. There's still $29,427. And the other part of that surplus is used to fund the HRAs that aren't funded by the budget, and those, there are 4 of those. They are the health reimbursement accounts for the employees that have health insurance, because the town pays 80% of their out-of-pocket expenses. And that could potentially cost the town $24,000 a year. It hasn't yet, but that doesn't mean somebody doesn't get sick, and you would have to put that money out. So there's usually a cushion for that, and that actually shows on page 24 at the bottom. So 27,000, I suppose, could be added to the budget to 29 to reduce the amount of taxes. You could do that right, you could change the budget now if you wanted to reduce it by that much.
What about the deficit of 40,000 something?
Well, that had to do with the bond payments for the garage.
Well, it looks like it's, when you look in here, it was under materials.
And materials, those were way over because we ended up having to do a lot of ditching for the general municipal roads permit. And I did end up, because we're on a cash basis, I can't put things in one year. The auditors will always make me move it where it needs to go, even though I want to put it in a certain place or a certain time frame. And they will always say, no, you can't do that. So I have to move things back to.
So what is actually our financial status? How much surplus, any deficit?
So we have a $29,000 surplus. After you take the insurance money out for the mill roof.
Dana?
Most HRAs, you're paying 80%. You should have a pretty good idea of how much money you have to pay for that, right? I mean, I have the same thing in my job, and they know how much, whether I use it or not, all of it, it will end up as surplus in the end of the year.
We don't ever fully fund all employees' HRA.
I know my employment, they sometimes don't send a check to the company so soon. You know, it's a pay-as-you-go quarterly type thing, but, okay.
But they're never fully funded.
Lou Russo, I'm also in the Lister's office, but I was a former select board member, somewhat familiar with the budgetary process. As far as a surplus goes, if you have a surplus, Bonnie is right, you have to have it warned for a town meeting, and the town meeting has to vote on what to do with that surplus. If you do not do that, then the surplus cannot be used for anything else until it goes to the following year's town meeting. So from what I understand, we don't have to hold up the budget in order to deal with the surplus. We can let that sit in our reserve account until the following year, and it can be put on next year's warrant. So I think we don't have to hold up the budget for that purpose. One of the things that has always frustrated me with the way our auditors require us to do things is to list things that are off budget on the cash, from a cash perspective, to show it as if it was on the budget. A lot of these things, I'm looking at page, I've got to put my glasses on, page 36, and I see a lot of things that are not budgeted for, things like library grant info, income, insurance proceeds, FEMA October 2017 storm. Those are really off-budget things. Those are not things that we budgeted for, but they have to be shown on the, from a cash perspective on here. So some of that surplus, I think, is off-budget things, and the surplus that we deal with is on-budget things. So I've been very frustrated over the years that the auditors require us to put off-budget things on this list. So I'm not quite sure how much of this 29,000 Terry was talking about are really off-budget items as opposed to on-budget items. So again, my thinking is that we don't have to hold up the budget for the surplus. We can deal with that in the future. Regarding the payback of the FEMA or the Irene fund, I asked for some numbers from Terry regarding Irene, and this might be a good time to share those with you, because I, as a select board member at the time of Irene, I kind of wanted to know what Irene cost the town. So I did some research, and let me get the right sheet up here. The total Irene recovery cost was $5,144,216.26. That's all of what we spent for Irene. The Federal Highway Department gave us $139,897. That was to deal with the South Hill Road being the alternate detour for Wardsboro and Water Street being the detour for Route 30. We received $4,382,214 from FEMA, reimbursed from FEMA. And if you recall, the state had what they called the 3-cent rule. That was, no town was going to be required to pay more than, I think it was 3 cents on the grand list or whatever that exactly rule was. But we got a reimbursement from the state for that rule of $158,727. And that payment, by the way, didn't come in until, I think, February of this year. So we didn't know the final FEMA numbers until February of this year. So from the select board standpoint, they've been borrowing money from our reserves to cover this until they knew what the final cost was. So therefore, the total cost to the town for Irene was $463,378.05. Of that $463,000, approximately $72,000 was our share of all the FEMA projects. And $391,462 was money that was not part of a FEMA project, but just was used to fix some of the problems that we had. So what that means is the town share of $463,378 has been borrowed up to now from our reserve accounts. We need to pay that back, as Bonnie suggested, and I talked with Paul about that earlier, and I think it's up to the select board to determine how to cover that $463,000 payback to our reserve accounts. So along with Bonnie, I would task the select board to come up with a plan and propose that plan to the town next year's town meeting. Now, what can happen? Things like the reserve or the surplus that we just talked about. That surplus could be voted on next year to pay back some of the money to pay back the Irene costs. We could be budgeting other funds to pay back some of that Irene cost. So I would suggest to the select board that they come up with a plan to deal with that surplus. So my thinking is the other thing I can't explain anything about that, the $40,000 deficit. That's something that I wasn't prepared to speak to that today. But regarding the first two, I would suggest that we don't hold up the budget until, for those two reasons anyways.
Good. Yes, CJ.
Just a quick question. Lou, were you talking about February 2020 or February 2019?
2020.
Okay.
That just came in a couple of months ago.
Okay.
Other questions? Observations? Yes.
The money that came in February 2020, will that money automatically go back to the 400,000?
No, that actually was prior to the 400,000. That money was bigger. That money was one of the numbers that I used to come up with the 463,000.
But it will go back towards the 415,000 that's actually due to the highway.
Right.
Reserve account.
Correct.
Yeah.
So how much do we still owe to that account once we put the money that just came in?
$257,000.
But 71,000 of that is our responsibility for, it's the 3-cent rule. That's what the 3 cents would have raised in 2011. So you really sort of have to take that out from there too, because we technically were responsible for that, I think.
Nelson?
Yeah, I just have a question. Are we all done with FEMA money now? Do we know that we are getting no more?
We do. That was the very last page. That was their whole balance that was due to us once they accounted for everything out of all of the 95 projects that we had.
Other questions? Any observations? What I'd like to remind people is, because we're in a little different space according to Robert's rules, we're not considering the article at this point. We're considering postponement to an indefinite. So in order for, if there's no more discussion, in order for this to pass, it's 50% plus one to pass postponing indefinitely. If it fails that vote, then we go back to the original article and we open it up again, and numbers will be provided again. So, yes, Jeff?
Yes, I'd just like to ask the select board if there's a reason why they haven't addressed this debt until now.
Yes.
One of the difficulties we have in the select board is trying to work with concrete numbers and not guesses. And so until we get everything we're getting back from FEMA and know exactly where all these things lie, There's not a lot we can do about it except, make stuff up. So we're trying to, now we have an idea what we're going to have to deal with, we can come up with plans to make this work. This has been a long, arduous process. Terry has worked herself to the bone in making these things work. Select boards have been involved, but there's only so much we can do until we have the hard numbers. Now that she's got all the money in, we've taken a very close look at it. You said you've been talking about it. And it was certainly something that's going to be on the select board agenda. Welcome, Board James. Welcome to the bottom.
Other questions? Observations? Someone can call the question.
Call the question.
Thank you. Yes.
Ask for a paper ballot?
If there are 7 people who wish to have a paper ballot on this vote, please raise your hand. I need 7 for a paper ballot. I have 1 paper ballot. Now remember, it's got to be 50 plus 1. I know you don't want to go through the line again. But I'm going to ask somebody up here, when I ask for the vote, to count hands. All right? I am legally not responsible for counting. Just wanted to make that clear. Okay, so what you have right now is a motion to postpone Article 4 indefinitely. Please, all of those in favor to postpone indefinitely, please raise your hands. Very good. Hands down. All those who are opposed to this motion, please raise your hand. Yes, you have to count.
I got
What'd you get?
51.
All right. So that would be, let's say that's a total of 60 to be half, you need 30. With that vote of 51, the motion has been defeated. Now we go back to the original article, number 4. I will state it again. I would also like to let people know we are at 3 minutes to noon. So we can press on. I think it would be good to press on, but I don't know how many people are going to stay afterwards. So, shall we press on? Yes. Very good. Okay, so Article number 4 is to see what sum of money the voters will vote to pay the town's running expenses and how it will be collected. Note, there are 2 sections of this. We'll deal with them individually. Lou.
I've got 2 amendments I'd like to propose.
Okay, can we just hold on a minute? Because right now we have no number standing on the floor. So is there a number that the select board has for the budget?
To be raised by taxes would be $1,091,358.
On page 36.
At the very top.
At the very top. There's a 1 million plus number. Right?
That's the .07, .07.
Okay, it's the top line right there?
Yes.
Okay, so $1,091,358 even is the number that's on the floor. Lou?
Okay, on page 36, there's a line item called current use. Current use is a number that we get from the state every year. I can explain that to you privately if you'd like, rather than explain it to everybody. But I think we can depend on that number being somewhat the same every year.
I would say no.
It can be, unless the legislature changes the law, that number would be the same.
Depending upon who.
Okay,
Well,
Let's
yes.
explore, and who I want you to stick on this one article, because we can't have
This
2
is-
amendments on top of each
No,
other.
I'm going to do one. Just one.
Okay, thank you.
My amendment would be that we take the $19,178, or approximately $20,000, and I would say let's put $19,000 on the proposed budget, since we know that that number, unless the legislature changes the law, that number should come in somewhat similar to that number every year. And that would reduce the amount of money for tax collection by the same 19,000. So basically what it's doing is putting that number on budget so we can reduce the total taxes.
Okay, that is the amendment to the article. Is there a second to that amendment? CJ seconds it. Is there discussion on the amendment to the article? All right. Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor for accepting the amendment that Lou Russo has put forward, please raise your hands. All in favor of the amendment? Okay, thank you. All opposed? So passed. Oh, there is one person there. So passed, which means the new number is
$1,072,358.
okay, that's $1,072,358 even to be raised by taxes. Lou, I believe you had a second.
Yes, first of all, I wanted to commend the select board for a budget that is very, very trim. I did notice one item, though, I wanted to propose to you. I'm not necessarily, I think it's the, let me see what page it's on. It's on page 38. It's called the Windham County Sheriff. About 4 years ago, we voted as a select board to increase the number of hours from a 40-hour per month contract to an 80-hour per month contract. We were thinking at the time that our revenue would go up as well. Our revenues were approximately $12,000, an average of about $12,000 in fines. That $12,000 has gone up to an average of about $17,000. So we did not double. We doubled the hours. We doubled the budget on the expense side, but we did not see a corresponding increase on the revenue side. So my thinking is that we ought to go back from an 80-hour contract per month to a 40-hour contract per month. That would reduce the expense of the sheriff's department from $50,000 to $25,000, and it would require a corresponding change on the income side. You can see that on the income side, it's a $20,000 budget for fines, but if you look at the actuals, you'll see the actuals were much less. So I would suggest that we would reduce a corresponding $5,000 from the income side, which would give us a net decrease in the budget on the revenue side by another $20,000.
Okay, what I'm going to do is, because there's two items in there, I'm going to split them apart. Okay. Because you can't have two amendments going.
The problem is you always have to keep expenses equal to revenue.
Understood, but we need to do this. So go with your first proposal, which would be the decrease in hours, correct?
To reduce the contract from a $50,000 a year contract to a $25,000 a year.
That is, wait a minute, that is the motion on the floor. Do I have a second for that? Then we can open it to discussion. Is there a second? There's a second here. Open for discussion, yes.
Do you want to decrease it by the dollar amount or by the hours?
Well, a budget is a dollar number as opposed to the hours.
By the hour, and I'm not entirely sure exactly. Just clocking off 25 days brings us down to 40 hours.
Right.
We need to look at the coverage time and then come up with an amount.
Well, I would then, because it's a budgetary meeting, we can't say it that way. We have to say it by numbers.
Yeah. Other questions or discussion? Yes.
I'm just wondering if we have to have it be a start, 80 or 40, could it be
that's the contract that the select board ends up working out with the sheriff. And there's a new sheriff in town, literally. So we need to talk in terms of how to do that with him. He may have ways of doing it differently. I don't know the answer to that. I don't want to speak for his situation. And I'm sure the two guys in the back don't want to even be recognized.
You look head shaking back and forth.
That's the answer. I don't know the answer to that without contract negotiations.
Yes, Sue?
Sue Stomsky, my only concern is it's been very nice to see a presence down on Depot Street with the police sitting there with our summer traffic that we get for the campground and some of the parents and whoever go down towards the school and the state park. It's been nice. I just don't want to see any of those hours cut from there because their presence has definitely been a change in our traffic going by the house. Sometimes it's a speedway and it's pretty crazy. I just don't want that to be cut.
Joel and Patty, and then over here.
Joel Blooming, people come down 30 to 50 miles an hour, and I think that the sheriff's office has done a great job in trying to minimize that in the 30 miles zone. So I would not like to see the hours cut.
Patty?
I agree, even with the car with the hat in it.
I would just like to say the same. I really feel like having the police presence has been exceptionally good to have on Old Route 8. I very much liked having a sheriff's car drive past there. For those of you who may not know, I pull out of Sir Sassabo's Road with my tractor to go to the field, and people are flying down there at 65 miles an hour. I have 5 children that I need to take care of, and making sure that there's somebody there at a presence at some point is nice to have. Whether or not it's in the time frame that we need it, it doesn't matter. They're there, and I would personally not like a 50% cut.
Very good. Any other observations? Yes, yes, Andy.
Maybe Tom could speak to this more, but I'm very interested in the reports they release, and I read exactly what the sheriff's department do. They patrol all our roads, and sometimes when they get, it's more than a speeding ticket. It may be a criminal offense like excessive speed, and they get tied up in court costs. We've been seeing that a little bit. I've seen it in the information that they release, that some of the revenues are going to time spent in court, whereas if it was just a regular traffic ticket, like I said, we've lost some revenues there this year. You know, they do more than just part of the contract. X amount of dollars, I think, goes to more than just traffic or speed enforcement or whatever. You know, the traffic. They do regular stuff. So I didn't think I would ever say this, but I would be against any cut in hours, as I can see a definite benefit with having them here for the contract that we have.
I agree with him. Again, I think the presence is what's important, not necessarily the revenue we're getting, because it's important to have that for safety reasons.
I've been in, just a moment, I'll recognize you in a moment. I've been informed that there's a deputy here who can address the issue. If it's all right with the body, he's a non-voting resident. So I'm just asking the body, it's okay that he speak to us? Very good, sir.
Sergeant Norton from the patrol supervisor in the sheriff's office. Yeah, just as the select board brought up, several years ago when we did go up, the select board did ask that we also provide back roads patrols. We respond to alarms when we're in town, sometimes even when we're not in town, doing the directed patrols for the school. Also, we've had several complaints out here on Pikes Falls Road. So it's, you know, are there still speeders? Yes, but I would hope that the lessening in tickets is because we're actually able to be here more. You know, I can't say that for sure, but you know, that's the hope that we would have. But I would hope everybody sees us out there, and that's kind of what we're wanting to do. You know, be here, be seen, and you know, help out whenever we can.
Thank you.
I would just like to say that I also am opposed to cutting the budget for safety reasons. I think that there has been a difference, and it is important to see them around. It does, add to our safety.
Other questions or observations? Yeah. Almost had a bid in the back there. Oh, sorry, yes.
Hi, I'm Linda Sheehan, and I live up on Jamaica Mountain. And cars go 75 to 80 miles an hour. And when I go out of my driveway, people fly by. I have to make sure both sides are clear for me to go. And with the cops across the street, they slow down. So I do not want any cuts.
Good.
That happened to me yesterday.
Yes, sir.
Has there ever been any kind of study to where like a stop sign or traffic lights or speed bumps or anything like that to have an effect of slowing down the traffic through that?
We had a conversation earlier in the year about putting speed bumps. We had a radar assessor, I don't know what the official name is, set up on Depot Street. The tricky part comes in balancing out the costs and the annoyance factor for the residents with slowing people down for the non-residents and that kind of thing. It's a conversation the select board's had over time, so we are discussing it. The tricky thing about speed bumps is they have to come up in the winter because the plows can't get through. So there's other kinds of things. We looked into what is the official word for that radar thing you guys had?
Oh, radar car.
All those years of education. But that's an expensive proposition, and these guys have a few that they move around for free. But for us to put one up, we can discuss on the board putting up, like if you go through Weston, a number of cities, they've got the standing little radar dummies that say thank you when you're doing 25. Those are very expensive, and they require, as it turns out, a subscription to keep them going. So there's a lot of money involved. We're not exactly sure how best to manage that. We are certainly always open to you guys dropping in on a select board meeting and offer your suggestions. But it is a discussion we've been having.
I'm just wondering whether we look at other options or not.
So yeah,
As far as those signs go, it's about $10,000 per sign. So we talked about putting one on Depot Street, we talked about putting one up on Pikes Falls. But again, that's $20,000. It's a fairly large expenditure for us to do.
Yeah.
Select board.
One question.
Actually, what we're doing, yeah, right. Okay, to remind people where we are. We're not on the article, we're on the amendment. And the amendment is Lou's amendment to cut, I believe, the budget for the line item of the Wyndham County Sheriff by $25,000, correct, Lou? So that is the amendment you're voting on. All those in favor of that amendment, please raise your hand if you support cutting the Sheriff's Department budget by $25,000. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, very good. All those opposed to the amendment, please raise your hand. I think the amendment has gone down. Now, Lou, you have a second part.
The second part has no merit based on the first part.
Very good. So we move back now to the actual article. And so the number we have now established is $1,072,358, correct? Okay. Now, I am going to ask Bonnie to help us because I made a mistake last year. And so what we need to do next on this is after the comma, you will notice and how it will be collected. So Bonnie, do you have a motion?
Okay, I move that we expend a total budget of, if I got this right, $1,335,260 with
Okay, yes, please keep going.
with $1,072,358 of it to be raised by taxes, and the rest would be anticipated revenues, and I'm not sure what exactly that total is. and it would be due and payable on the 1st of October, going delinquent on the 2nd of October, with an 8% penalty added, and as of December 1st, interest at the rate of 1% would be added until paid in full.
Thank you. That helps a lot. So, what we have now is the article as amended to amount and also as to how to collect. Is there any discussion? Further discussion? Thank you. Very good. I think this will be fine. All those in favor of passing this article, number 4, which is a budget for $1,072,358 and collected as Bonnie described and inscribed by our town officials into the record, because I can't remember it all. All those in favor of this budget, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? So passed. Article 4 has been passed. Thank you. Now, we are at 12:15. What would the body like to do? You want to plow on? Okay, here we go. Article number 5 is to see if the voters will authorize a select board to borrow money in anticipation of taxes. Is there a motion on the floor? Patty Dixon is moving. Is there a second? Yes. Nelson, thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'd like all in favor of...
I'm going to move the call.
Move the call. Thank you. Okay. Close the discussion. All those in favor of Article 5, please raise your hand. Thank you. Those opposed? Any abstentions? Notice I changed that up between a voice vote and that's the power of the moderator. Number 5. Shall the voters authorize the select board to spend, quote, unanticipated funds such as grants, gifts, and/or interest, end quote. Sorry, that was Article 6. Thank you. That's my trifocals. So Article 6, shall the voters authorize the select board to spend unanticipated funds such as grants, gifts, and/or interest? Patty, so moved. Mr. Flowers, second? Very good. Any discussion?
Call the question.
Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor of passing Article 6, shall the voters authorize the select board to spend unanticipated funds such as grants, gifts, and/or interest? Please raise your hand if you support it. Thank you. Those who oppose? Abstaining? Thank you. So passed. Number 7, to set a time for the opening of the next annual town meeting to be held the first Tuesday of March 2021. Patty?
I make a motion we set the time at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Motion has been made. It'll be 10 o'clock. And what is the date of the first Tuesday of that next year? Does anybody have a date for that? Does anybody have a pocket calendar? March 2nd. So it would be 10 a.m. on March 2nd, the first Tuesday in 2021.
Second.
Second, thank you. Discussion. Thank you. Question call. All in favor of Article 7 to have the open meeting on the 2nd of March, 2021 at 10. All in favor? Yes, thank you. All opposed? No, abstaining. Excellent. On we go. Uh-oh. All right. Here we go. Article 8 is to transact, quote, other business that may legally come before the meeting. For people to understand other business, this is where people can speak to what's going on, what they might like to see the select board do, or we're going to possibly talk about school issues, but these are all non-binding because they are not warned, therefore there'll be no vote. This is just an informational section. So, who would like to begin? Yes, sir.
Chris Robbins. I'd like to put a plug in for the broadband survey. every household either will receive or should have received a card asking you to take the regional broadband survey. This is the first part of the feasibility study to implement a all-fiber internet for underserved or unserved areas of which are in town. The objective is to form a communication union district similar to other municipal districts from as many as 27 towns in the Wyndham region as possible. They intend to write a business plan, include technical initial design of the network, and a business plan suitable to pursue capital funding from grants, revenue bonds, and private investment. It does not involve taxes, and it does not, in fact, it's illegal to pay for such things. There's one operating in the north already, and a second one being formed. So this is an opportunity to form all-fiber or high-performance network in the region. The survey can be taken online. As Greg mentioned, there's a slip up in the box with the URL. It's also published on the town website and Facebook. You can take it online, or if you want to download a paper copy and either mail it to the address on the description in the front of the survey, or if you'd like, drop it off at the town office and we'll see if it's collected. Also, they're not quite ready for prime time, but it will be soon. Mobile version, so you can take it with your smartphone. And when it's available, I'll publish a QR code so you can scan it in. There's more information on the town website and the Facebook page describing this program. It also has answers to frequently asked questions. So please take the survey, even if you're already served to your satisfaction. It's important for the rest of the town that we have as much participation as possible. Thanks.
And also just note, it's not a commitment. You'll answer these questions, and some of them involve money you might be willing to pay for these services. By doing this, you're not signing up. You're just providing information.
Yes, sir.
Bob Stone. I'd just like to make a comment. This is the single most important economic activity that we could possibly get involved in. The only thing that will ever raise Jamaica's openness to the outside world is connectivity. And there are a lot of smart people who are running businesses right now that are on the internet, but they don't have the power, the additional power that's required to put out large volumes of data to printers, to other countries, what have you, at the same speed that the rest of the world is operating at now. It's a very, very important issue. I mean, for myself, I remember something that happened back in Minnesota back in the 1970s, when a small town that had nothing going for it. They lost all their rural economy, and they had some smart people there that put in high-speed internet into the public library. And they invited all the small businesses to come and use that library for free. 10 years later, they were the #1 town in the state in terms of advancement in their internet connections. And you had artists, and you had printers and photographers moving in there for that space. And it blew up. This can happen here. It can happen here. So I'm very much in favor.
Very good. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Betsy Thompson. I'm a resident of Jamaica. I'm curious what the infrastructure is that's required for this. And what are the health effects of 5G and all this other stuff?
If you're on the power grid, that's all that's required. They're going to string the fiber
if you have an extra long driveway and you have to put in an extra pole, then the resident will be responsible for that. But for 99 and 9/10% of us, we've got electricity, no issue. And I don't know, what was the second part of the question?
Oh, health effects of, some of us come to Vermont to get away from radiation, from other ill effects of modern communication.
You don't have to sign up. I guess that's one of it. It's, whatever ill effects might be from implementing the network, I think the education benefits for our children are far, far outweigh. So I really don't see it.
Any other, yes?
I just wanted to take a couple minutes about rec committee. First off, I wanted to say thank you to Tom for helping for so many years when his children were at Leland and Gray and still helping. But it's pretty much the same thing with me. I really can't do anything with rec committee anymore, so we really hope that somebody within the town would like to step forward. There's also a lot of changes, obviously, with the schools moving around, and there's a lot of opportunity for it to become more. The state has also offered grants if we want to try to include like walking times and spaces for people to meet. But I really can't have anything to do with it anymore. So hopefully somebody would like to be a part of the rec committee, have some young children or some time on their hands, either way. But I'm doing it a disservice at this point, so I'd like somebody to take that over. And then just really briefly, by talking with my neighbors here, found out that apparently there was a candidate night, and I had no clue, and was like, wow, remember when we used to do that? And they're like, actually, it just happened. So maybe we could do a town email or something, because I would love to have been a part of that. And I know we started it a long time ago. Maybe we don't have emails, maybe we're not allowed to, I don't really know, but some sort of communication other than just seeing people at town meeting, that would be awesome.
I think that will be taken into very serious consideration. Yes, Patty?
There was, at one time, the previous town clerk did ask people for emails. I think it was at a town meeting or some voting thing. And, but I guess some server blew up or something.
My hard drive crashed.
Yeah, so we lost it, and they weren't, yeah, so they're gone.
So we'll have to build it again? I see waving. I'm sorry, there's blinding light here, so I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead. I just wanted to mention that Jamaica Old Home Day will be Saturday, September 12th. We had a very successful Jamaica Old Home Day last year, and we will be starting meetings soon. Anyone wanting to volunteer, please step forward. There's a little task for each one of you if you'd like. Ann and I will be heading it up once again. And also, we have a little brochure here for the Jamaica Historical Foundation that we just did up that has some little bits of information on it, on what we've been doing, and feel free to join us there also.
Dana, and then I'll come over to Stephanie.
I just want to throw out about the school vote, March 25th, 9 o'clock, Australian ballot. You worried about your taxes on the town side? Taxes on the school side are more.
For anyone who's interested,
come out and vote.
This is your pamphlet. It has all the numbers in it. You'll find on page 3 the warning. So in Jamaica, the polls will be open from 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. to vote on that, and also the at-large position. Today, from the floor, we voted for our 2 representatives to the board. There's one other position there, which is open at large, so representing all the times. At the candidates night, Mike Foley, who presently has the position, spoke to them. Drew's here, Drew Hazelton. Because we're not voting on the floor for the position, it is by Australian ballot. If he wishes, he can address the assembly. Jeremy?
Thank you. I'm not actually your campaign, but I do want to give you guys a little bit of an update and answer questions as best I can about where we're at with our school and kind of what's going on with the school. So this has been a long process. I think I've been standing in front of this town meeting now for, I don't know, 10 years, explaining kind of where we are in our school process, where we are in our mergers and studies and whatnot. So at this point, we do have a merged school district. So there is no longer a Jamaica School District. We are part of the West River Modified Union Education District. Last year, you were asked to come to the polls multiple times on many different issues. Votes in, votes out on different town, Wyndham, whether they were in, Wyndham, whether they were out. We worked on the Articles of Agreement to allow voting for your local school board members from the floor like we've done. So that was a change that was made and you guys approved last year, as well as a bond vote for a heating system. So the take-home message is you are now officially, completely, 100% part of a merged school district. You are merged with Townsend, Jamaica, Newfane, and Brookline for the K or pre-K through 6th, and then Wyndham joins us for our 7 through 12 merged school district. So when you look at your budget, it's very important that you understand this is a single budget that has been split into 2 separate votes. So the numbers that you're looking at come from a single budget that was split by the Agency of Education into the 2 separate articles that are warned. When you come to the informational night, we'll do a better job of trying to explain what's in the budget, answer any questions that you may have about the budgeting process and what we know. But you will be voting by Australian ballot on the budget as well as the at-large positions of the board, like Dana said. This budget does represent what could be a 10% increase in your education property tax this year. And the reason I say what could be is because of our education funding formula, and anybody that's ever sat on a school board understands how difficult it is to understand how dollars flow from your pockets to your schools. And that's a complicated process that I'm sure our town clerk can explain, where we collect that money by taxes, we send it to the state, they filter it through a magic money machine, and then part of that money comes back to us. There's been a lot of discussion in recent weeks about a weighting study that came out in late December looking at what we're calling an equalized pupil. What you may or may not know about your education system is your education funding system is that it's built on a formula that it uses equalized students. So we don't go down to the school and count the number of kids in a classroom to determine what our number of students are. Each student has a different weight and a different value. So some students are counted as less than half of the student. They're 0.43 or 0.44. We have some students that are valued at greater than 1 student. And in the state's weighting, we come up with what we call an equalized pupil. So that is the multiplier that's used to determine whether we pay penalties or not. In this district, we've paid penalties as long as I can remember. Does anybody know when we were under the penalty threshold? I don't think it's since I've been paying taxes in Jamaica. We've been paying this penalty. The information that came out, and you should be paying attention, is the study that was done on the weighting, is that the weighting that has been done for the last 20 years is inequitable. And in fact, if the weighting was done in an equitable manner, the per pupil spending, or sorry, the tax rate in the town of Jamaica is likely to drop by about 40 cents, which is a huge number. It also means that for the last 20 years, or many of the last 20 years, you've been paying penalties on a faulty per pupil weighting system. There's a handful of pieces of legislation that have been introduced in Montpelier, trying to get them to implement changes to the weighting system for this budget year. So we don't know what is exactly going to happen in Montpelier with the change in the weighting study. The other thing that we don't know is what the yield is going to be this year. It's another number that is plugged in by the legislature at the last minute. We will not have an exact number for you as to what your tax rates are going to do until after you've already voted on the budget. That's the reality of the way our funding system works. So if you're trying to pin down a school board member and say, hey, what's my tax rate? And you're like, about 10% more than last year. That's the reason. We don't know what that yield is going to be or what the equalized pupils are going to be. Yes? I'm sorry.
No, don't say, no. Go for it.
Okay, so I'm somewhat familiar with that study, $300,000 study. As a result of that study, there are 4 pieces of legislation before the legislature, and they're not your normal, they're on a rush path to try to get something done before we vote on this budget. I would urge everybody in this room to vote no on the budget until such time as this whole mess is straightened out. Because it's just, this town in particular is being screwed, as you point out, by the current system. And to vote in another budget before the legislature deals with these issues and results its report would be a travesty.
Thank you. As a board member, I will not tell you how you should vote on a budget. I am providing you with the best information I can. So, but that is a huge concern as to that we know, and now we have a very detailed study showing that the weighting of our students in Jamaica has been wrong for a long time. The damage to our local education system, the opportunities that have been lost for our kids in the last 20 years has been huge. The penalties paid by the taxpayers in Jamaica has been huge. So we'll wait to see how this legislation works out and make adjustments in the future, but these are big considerations.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so enthralled. Patty, and then...
Yeah, one of the big parts of this is that, as Drew said, our kids have been, we haven't received equal opportunity for education for our children here. Some other towns have gotten more than they were due, and also we've put off doing things to keep programs in our schools, like taking care of our buildings and things like that, that really need attention. And that all these things might be able to happen now. Like for 20 years, we've been struggling with budgets every single year, and hopefully this will make a world of difference for our kids and for our buildings.
So just to add to that, right now you guys are looking at millions of dollars in deferred maintenance in this district. That is a direct result of very difficult budgets for many years, where our funds have been taken out of our pockets, turned around, and again sent somewhere else. So there is a real financial cost, not only an educational cost, but a long-term financial cost to the town, because this money was not available to us in previous years. The maintenance on our facilities wasn't done in an attempt to keep programming, and you are now sitting on a significant amount of deferred maintenance. Those numbers we are still not completely firm on. We've done engineering studies. We're working on getting bids and processes for doing those repairs. But it's a great statement. We certainly have a long-standing financial effect from it.
Betsy Thompson, what is the outcome of a budget that's not passed? How does that affect the ability of the school district to function?
So the process from here, from today, is we'll move forward to the 20, should get the date right? 25th. 25th. There will be a ballot. If the voters approve the ballot, then that will become the operating budget for the West River Modified Union Education District for next year. If the voters And keep in mind, all of your votes are commingled with all the other towns. We have one district now, so all the votes are commingled. If the voters vote down any individual article or all articles, then that budget will then get kicked back to the school board, who will then have the responsibility to present a new budget to the voters, and we would then schedule another meeting, another budget hearing, another meeting, and another vote.
But what happens to the function of the schools themselves?
So if this budget fails, and the board will more than likely put forward another budget before the end of the school year, there is a default budget that would go into effect if this body, if all the towns voted this budget down over and over and over again all summer long, as the board tried to get a budget passed. There is a default budget that would go into effect. The school would still open in the fall, regardless of whether you voted budgets down all summer or not.
I had Stephanie back here, then over there.
Is this something that we should be contacting our representatives about? Okay.
Absolutely. Laura Sibilia from Dover is kind of leading the legislative push on this. She's very well versed in education, has been a long-term school board member, understands the education funding formula and the weighting. There is information in these books. Please grab one about the weighting study and what that means. But absolutely get a hold of your legislators and let them know what that means. In this document, it's brought to the attention in the back as to what that looks like. So our legislators here in Wayne County are very much aware. They have all signed on to this legislation, but hearing from you will certainly help.
My question is, there's not just Jamaica involved, so if the other towns vote for this budget, then the budget passes, correct?
It's a simple majority of the merged district. Correct. There is no longer a Jamaica school district.
Yes, I want to go up here because I know there's stuff at the back, right?
Yeah.
Or do you have a question?
No, I don't have a question.
Okay.
No, I just want from Clara Robinson. Maybe a lot of people who don't know, there's an advisory committee that has been delegated to each town. Jamaica has one, a very active one. 11 people are on that advisory committee. We have been going to the meetings at the district board and giving input about how we feel Jamaica needs to have their needs met because we are part of that budget. Being that said, I think we've made some impact with that by sitting there and letting people know the budget was much higher figure that was put out, that hasn't been voted on, but it was 19% that time. And people were like, no. So people did go back to the board, did go back to the drawing board so that you know it has an impact if you belong to this committee. If you make a voice, you sit there and you talk about the needs of the Jamaica Village School. There are some things that, we have accomplished, but there's a lot of things that could be accomplished if more people were involved and were aware of what was going on. You need to have presence. You need to be there. It's just like this town meeting makes things happen because you're there. And I think that's the biggest piece that I am getting from being on this advisory committee. It meets with the principal once a month. Each town has somebody on that committee. So please feel free to get in touch with any of the people that are on the committee. There's a number of them here today. But we would like more people to be involved. And it's like the silent people, we don't get it done. So, and I think Drew knows, having sit on the other side of that, is that being there makes a big difference. There are some things that Jamaica is doing, Jamaica Village School is doing to education is the first primary thing is enhancing our educational piece and academics. And then there are other things that are happening that we are trying to make Jamaica known. So we need a face. We need to be out there.
Right, we feel we've been very successful as an advisory group. And we're also working on a couple of key points, one being before school care and after school care. We feel that's very important to our working families and parents who can leave their kids off early and let their kids stay until 5 o'clock or maybe even 6. I don't know, we'll see what we can come up with. We're also focusing on early education, and we would like to put in a 3-year-old program and the pre-K and kindergarten to continue as they are. just a little more. And then we have, for our after-school activities, we've been very successful with the Jamaica Memorial Library has started an after-school program, and we're hoping to do another day of that. We've got a great gardening program for the after-school going on that we're involving Windhall School, and their 7th and 8th graders will be coming down and participating with us. We're working on a mountain bike group and some other outdoor activities and maybe some music. We're working on getting ukuleles for all the kids and snowshoes with a grant. So there's a lot of great things that we're working on for the school. We're very fortunate to have the teachers and staff that we have there, and we have a very happy school.
Patty?
And if you cannot go to a school board meeting, they are filmed. They are on Brattleboro TV. They stay on there, it seems like in perpetuity. And there's a lot of stuff. This is early in the process of this merged district, and there's a lot of stuff that happens in these meetings. I'm not sure that it's living entertainment, but if there's something that you see that's being said or being talked about, that's where you can see it, and you can send emails to any board member. And it's really important to pay attention to what's going on, because a lot of decisions are made for our schools at these meetings. And once that vote is taken at the meeting, it's a done deal.
So, a couple things that, I said it every year I stood up here, get involved. We need Jamaica people involved. You are part of the merged district. If you are absent, then the needs and wishes and desires of the other people that are part of our merged district may overshadow the needs and wishes and desires of Jamaica. If you have a point, you can send emails to board members. It is the policy of the board that you do not read emails during board meetings. If you want your comments and your concerns to be heard publicly on the television for everybody to hear, you need to show up in person to do those, because it is the board's policy not to read emails into the record. They do go up on the website. Anything you send to board members is public record. But again, I've had some people who are like, well, why wasn't that read? It is the board's policy not to read emails or letters into the record. So if you want something out there in the public, come down and see and speak to the board. So get out and vote. Get out and vote on the budget. Get an at-large position that is up this year, and stay involved. With my advice for everybody.
Yes, CJ?
Would you just mention the informational session?
Yes, there's the informational meeting, which is, I don't need glasses.
March 24th.
March 24th, thank you. 7 p.m. is the informational meeting on the budget at Leland and Gray.
And that's the day before you vote.
The day before you vote, please come down and we'll hopefully be able to answer questions about the budget. If you're looking for the written kind of short synopsis that is in the book as to what changed that made your taxes go up. Remember, in this merged district, the 10% tax increase that Jamaica is looking at is not the same as what other towns are. For example, Brookline's tax rates go down in this discussion. So even though we are all working in the same budget, we're working all in the same school buildings, the cost to each town is different. So Jamaica is seeing a 10% plus or minus increase. Brookline is probably seeing a decrease. Townsend and Newfane are probably seeing something around 5%. So those are the kind of the factors involved in the budgeting and the voting.
Yes.
The next WRMUED meeting is the 16th and 7th, down in Lexington.
I remember that your representative, Kelly Piella, will be speaking at having a public meeting up at Wynn Hall this Thursday, the 5th, from 6 to 7. So if you have some questions and observations about what's going on up at the State House, this is your opportunity. Yes, Clara?
One more thing. As Drew said, this 10% is for the Jamaica school right now. I mean, this is for Jamaica taxpayers. What I would like to say is that the Jamaica Little Village School is an asset to this town. And whether or not this something happens that we don't have this, your taxes aren't going to go away. They're not going to go down because this Jamaica, and you can explain, there's a small school grant that is built into this tax, and it's needed. So you need to think about it in that aspect. It's not like you can, it's besides being your tax dollar, it's an asset to the town. So we need to make sure we're there with our bases.
Stephanie?
My comment is not about school, so when we're done, should I sit down?
Oh, God, there's other things besides school.
I can explain that if you'd like, if somebody wants to know briefly. With the merger, there used to be what we call a small schools grant. There still is a small schools grant, and that is based on the size of the elementary school. We get a chunk of money into our district. That money does not, however, stay here. That money is because of the small schools here, but it goes into the general operating budget of the entire district. During our budget discussion, one of the questions I asked was what happens if Jamaica School is closed? That grant funding that comes to support Jamaica School also goes away. So what that means in the grand scheme of things is it actually doesn't save any money because you lose the offsetting revenues of the small schools grant associated with it. So I know there was fears that people were at the district level trying to shut down Jamaica School. That is not the case. And there is no financial incentive to do so. That being said, they keep changing the rules on us. So there also was supposed to be a 5% hold harmless on your tax rate for 2 more years. There was fine print somewhere that nobody can seem to locate that's allowing our taxes to go up 10%. So what's been explained to us and what's been put out there as these are hard rules seems to keep changing as we go through this merger process. So I will caution you that I can't promise what they're going to do.
Any other questions or observations?
I did have a question about, if you can't make both the 24th and the 25th meetings, is the 24th informational meeting going to be televised? And I know it usually takes a couple of days to get it out, but is there a way that we can watch it without having, we can't?
So the 24th will be the informational meeting, and the next day is a ballot vote. So you'll have to cast your ballot on the 25th, or you should be able to cast that now, right? So they are available by absentee if you want to cast your ballots early.
Okay.
You're welcome to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions on this? Yes.
I don't have any questions on school, but I would like to talk about, on page 12 of the town hall, the town
report,
is they're talking about the census. And the census, I think, is going to be this year. It's once every 10 years. It is very, very important. We had a presentation at the Senior Solution about what they're doing this year. They're doing it a little bit differently. And every single person who is counted on the census is going
to... quiet, please. The meeting has not adjourned. Thank you.
And one of the things with Vermont, oddly enough, is that many, many people in Vermont are not counted on the census. One of the reasons is because they live in isolated areas. People don't go. Now this year, they're going to have a completely different way. They're going to ask you to do it online. Then they're going to ask you again to do it online. Then they're going to ask you a third time to do it online. If you have not responded, and if you have a post office box, they will drop something at your house. It is different. And what I am trying to do, Senior Solution had a man who gave a presentation last week, and he said there was a small amount of money that would be granted different towns to have a meeting in the town to inform people of how to do it and how important it is. And I am trying to get a nonprofit group. I have spoken to Karen, maybe with the Historical Society. It has to be a nonprofit group that asks for this grant. And I'm hoping that maybe with the Historical Society or maybe another nonprofit who is interested in it. It is so important because that is how the federal government allocates monies to the states. And Vermont has always been underrepresented because, now oddly enough, the single guys
don't fill the census. And senior citizens are sometimes responsible for not filling the census. So I would like to maybe organize a group with a nonprofit, I've spoken to Karen about it, to really give information. There is information there, it's not that difficult, and people have to understand that every single person will be counted. That is in your house, it's going to be counted. They're not asking a lot of questions, it is completely private, they cannot give that information, you are not asked for your social security. The thing you're asked for is there's 9 very simple questions, and I would just like people to be aware that, you know, it's happening this year, and we hear very little about it. I mean, I've only heard about it at the Senior Solution, and I know that there's a man by the name of Simmons who's going around Windham and Windsor County and trying to give as much information as possible. We had him come and speak at the Senior Solution, we had him speak at the benefit, but that's a very small group. What we want to do is we want to really, really get, you know, the majority of the people who are here represented, because that's where the money's coming from.
Very
That's
good.
how they allocate it, it's for the next 10 years.
Excellent. I think people are well advised, and thank you.
So I'm going to try very much to work with, like I said, it has to be a nonprofit. I have to find out what it entails, what the grant entails, but between Karen and myself, we'll try and get something going, and maybe get a general meeting to get community. Like we had a meeting about Meet Your Candidate, and unfortunately, so many people didn't know about it, and it was such a wonderful meeting that we had. And I think that an email from the town clerk, emails from the town clerk would be very, very, very important.
I think you're advised, thank you.
Yeah, I think that that would be very important, so that we know what's happening,
Very good.
you know, and we don't.
And I see Stephanie back here.
So all I wanted to say is that, yes, we did do candidate night. We tried to reach everybody. If you're on Facebook, please sign up for the Jamaica Facebook page, because that's where we're getting out a lot of our information. And so please do that. We definitely posted it multiple times there. We did have send out emails that we had, but I'm wondering, would you be willing to start a new email list that people could give their email address to you, and we could be sending things around? It was really helpful before.
We spoke about it in the office, and it's been asked. And if that's what the town wants, I'm your town clerk and I work for you. But I just want to say that if there is such a list, people are going to come and want random things shot out to the whole neighborhood. And that's where the problem comes in, because how do you say, well, your stuff isn't important enough for us to send, or yours isn't relevant, but yours is, and I don't want to make those decisions. I'll gladly send anything you tell me to, but that's my concern.
And if I may throw in, if we do it, it's public.
Yes. So
Everything is public.
if your email is on a list, it is public record.
Okay, so if people don't want to do that, that's fine, but if you want to get information about candidate night in the future, come talk to me and I'll take your email address down.
Very good. So, are there other? Yes, Tom.
Well, I just want to talk about, there's a show this weekend here at the town hall, Winter Animals. Jamaica Community Arts is putting it on, and their local band from Peru. So please come on down at 7 o'clock. Hope to see you all there.
Can we get in touch with the Arts Council if we get anything going on the census?
Sure, yeah, definitely.
Karen?
I just wanted to say something about the emails. Pam Tweedy, when she was the town clerk, she used to send out something, was it weekly or monthly?
It was like quarterly.
Was it? Okay.
Or whatever, but.
Monthly would be nice.
The public records law has changed, so we actually don't even email documents anymore, because we get requests for people's pay rates and social security number, all kinds of random stuff, and if we don't do it at all, we can say to these people, no, we don't do that, we don't email anything. If you want to come into the office and get the information, that's fine. We don't email it. And then we're not liable for, putting something else.
Tom?
Also, I work on the town website and try to keep it up to date. I post the videos of the select board meetings when I remember to do so. There's also a calendar on there. It's not necessarily kept up to date, but Sarah and I have talked about, getting events. So if you have an event, we can put it on the town calendar, and then you can go to the town website and it will be listed there. We have select board meeting and planning commission meetings on that right now. And last year I did schools was off and those types of things. I don't think I did it this year, but that is out there as well as a resource.
Okay, so we can tap in multiple ways. Are there other business to come before the body? As we slowly dwindle? Okay. I just wanted to say one thing. Anybody who's been elected, remember, see Sarah, you have an oath to sign. I'd like to thank everybody for voting. Who hasn't voted?
Don't forget,
Oh, lunch.
waiting for you.
Lunch is waiting. So thank you all. Have a good 2020.